Today on Investigate TV Plus, across America, people already mourning the death of their loved one learn their family members' ashes have gone missing in the mail. I'm Tisha Powell.
And I'm Lee Zurich. We take an in-depth look at how this can happen and why experts say families may use the courts to get their loved ones home.
What do you find most shocking about it?
Well, that the Postal Service can be sort of this indifferent and just almost cruel about it.
Plus, neighborhood streets turned into war zones in a matter of seconds.
At 1,200 rounds a minute, that means the magazine is empty on a single pull of the trigger, and we don't know where those rounds are going to go.
Correct, in a matter of seconds.
We reveal the nationwide effort to crack down on what some say is responsible for the violence.
Then, how crafters around the world are helping people heal. In-depth stories that inform and inspire. You're watching Investigate TV Plus.
Hundreds of boxes holding cremated remains of lost loved ones are in a warehouse at the U.S. Postal Service.
Some of them have been sitting there undelivered for years, and family members can't get answers to the question, is there a loved one among them?
The Postal Service wouldn't respond to our request for an interview, and it said it would keep the cremated remains indefinitely.
It's not, like a lost Christmas letter to Santa. It's time to get her back, get her home.
Investigative reporter Kristen Crowley discovered the issue after a congressional audit found 452 undeliverable cremated remains. Yet no one had done anything to reunite them with loved ones.
She brings us new details on what legal rights those desperately searching for answers may have.
I never expected something like this to happen.
The death of Amy Redford's mom wasn't easy. She passed away while the two were estranged. But that hasn't been the hardest part.
It kills me to know that I cannot place her somewhere where I know she deserves to be.
Her mother's ashes are missing. Back in 2020, Amy shipped the ashes in the mail from Louisville, Kentucky to her sister in Florida, where she planned to bury her mother. But Amy mistakenly put the wrong address on the box. And the woman who accidentally received the ashes?
She left the package outside the door, and from there she doesn't know what happens to it.
For years, Amy has feared the worst, that the ashes ended up in the trash. That was until she learned the post office has 452 unclaimed cremated remains. The post office says they're undeliverable because of incorrect packaging or missing labels. All of them are in its mail recovery center in Atlanta.
Do you think it's possible your mother could be in that facility?
Honestly, yeah, I do.
But Amy can't get the answer to that because the post office says it will not let anyone from the public access the secure facility and says it will hold those undelivered packages indefinitely. A response that leaves Amy frustrated, and she's not the only one.
Do you believe that your mom is there?
I think so.
Sarah Jelinek in Washington State.
I wasn't even thinking that was even a possibility, that she could have gotten lost.
Michaela Eckler in South Carolina.
It's disgusting, quite honestly.
And Daniel Smith in Indiana have all waited years for answers about what happened to their loved ones' cremated remains. All of them shipped the ashes through the United States Postal Service because, by law, the Postal Service is the only courier that can deliver them.
Here she is.
In our initial investigation, we shared their stories.
She meant everything to me.
Stories that Robert Greeneisen couldn't get out of his head.
The way that I understood your first article to indicate that post office was just going to leave them there forever. I feel that's wrong.
Greeneisen is a funeral director in Ohio. After seeing our report, he offered to help, saying he was willing to go through every box to find where the ashes belong.
There's identifiers inside. We have urns that they have markings on. They have name tags on. They've been engraved in some manner.
Those urns could be inside those cremated remains packages.
Yes.
So we contacted the Postal Service with Greeneisen's offer. Its response: the Postal Service appreciates the outside interest, but will have to respectfully decline the request. The post office would not comment whether it found any other forms of identification in the boxes. Amy, who says her mother's death certificate is in that box, says it's a punch to the gut.
It's wrong. It's absolutely wrong. It's not like I lost a rug. It's not like I've mailed some of my jewelry to somebody and it disappeared. That's different. This is a person's body. And if you ask me, I think that they should be prosecuted.
But could the post office face legal consequences for this? We sat down with Stephen McAllister for that answer. He's a former U.S. attorney for the District of Kansas and teaches law at the University of Kansas.
Had you ever heard of anything like this before?
No, I find it shocking. Just shocking.
What do you find most shocking about it?
Well, that the Postal Service can be sort of this indifferent and just almost cruel about it.
McAllister says there is nothing preventing the post office from accepting help from professionals like Green Eisen to determine where these cremated remains belong. But it's up to their discretion. And while he says the post office is heavily protected from being sued due to sovereign immunity, there is a route these families could take to get the packages identified.
If you could turn it into a constitutional claim.
A constitutional claim is a civil claim where families could argue the post office is violating their constitutional rights by holding on to the cremated remains.
Do you think this could fall under a constitutional claim?
I think it could potentially, given that you're talking about, human remains.
Filing an injunction could get the courts to force the post office to take steps to find where these cremated remains belong, but it would not include any jail time or fines.
It wouldn't be about money, it's just about getting the government to do the right thing.
And the right thing, these families say, is all they want.
I'm not here for cash value. I'm here for accountability, and there needs to be a change.
There's no reason for them to not let at least somebody in there who's willing to do the work if they're not willing to.
We reached out to multiple members of Congress about this issue because Congress could also compel the Postal Service to make some effort to reunite those boxes with loved ones. But none agreed to go on camera about it. We did speak with one U.S. Senator Mike Braun for our first story on this. He said his team is working toward finding a solution.
Still ahead, how a doctor is turning research from a common COVID side effect into a helpful guide to wine tasting.
It's a taste science project, and so for me, who is obsessed with taste and smell science, it's just fascinating.
Plus, law enforcement and advocates say a tiny device is responsible for violence across the country. An in-depth look at how Glock switches work and the effort to get them off the streets.
Modified guns that can spray hundreds of bullets in seconds can also ruin lives forever.
It is hard for me to drink anything cold anymore because the last time my lips touched my baby's face, it was so cold.
Ordinary pistols transformed into instant machine guns thanks to this small and accessible device.
These Glock switches is probably one of the greatest threats that law enforcement face today.
Even seasoned shooters have difficulty controlling the automatic gunfire.
But you see the inability for the shooter to control where those rounds go and to expend dozens of rounds very rapidly in a way that without control of the operator, you can see multiple people shot.
Often leaving innocent bystanders to pay the price.
I have screamed, I have ransacked my house, I have thrown things, I have punched walls, and none of them can bring my baby back.
A Georgia lawmaker became a personal victim of this violence and now wants to change the law.
Investigative reporter Brennan Keefe explains how and gives us a behind-the-scenes look at law enforcement's effort to fight Glock switches on the streets.
And a warning, you're about to hear and see automatic weapon fire. It's shocking, but it's important for us to alert you to the danger.
15 rounds, 30 rounds.
spraying from a regular handgun
converted to fire like a machine gun
with a single pull of the trigger, on the range and on the street. So many shell casings, officers are running out of evidence markers and are forced to use paper cups. This tiny switch instantly turns an ordinary pistol into a machine gun. This handgun without the switch, single fire. One press of the trigger, one bullet comes out of the gun. But because it has the switch, it will now fire full auto. Even experienced shooters have trouble controlling a full auto handgun. Here's the ATF agent who showed us how to use it. Knocked back by the sheer firepower, the bullet's way off target.
You could be sitting in your bedroom. You could be sitting at your kitchen table. Bam, from a gun that powerful.
Sandra Scott is a member of the Georgia General Assembly.
Representative Sandra Scott.
Just days before this year's legislative session, her cousin was killed by stray gunfire.
It was his son's birthday. He thought his dad was coming home to celebrate, but his dad ended up in the morgue.
Scott had already introduced a bill to add state prison time for possession of a gun switch, a full year before her cousin was killed.
A bullet don't have a name on it.
In other words, it's going to kill whoever it hits.
That's right.
This isn't a hypothetical. They're finding these on the street.
They've been on the street for a while.
Atlanta police are finding more and more gun switches on suspects.
And that's a federal crime, sir. Oh my goodness. A switch? Stop!
Sometimes after they go off.
Shot fire, shot fire, shot fire!
This officer was saved during a struggle for the gun only because the full auto weapon jammed in the mud. In other cities, officers have not been so lucky. In Houston, a single gunman with a switch took on several officers. And another Houston police officer was killed by full auto gunfire when serving a warrant.
Let's do this, Steve.
At 1,200 rounds a minute, that means the magazine is empty on a single pull of the trigger, and we don't know where those rounds are going to go.
Correct, in a matter of seconds.
The ATF showed us just how easy it is to download a gun switch from the internet and print it at home. How do you stop something when you can 3D print it at home?
That's the million-dollar question.
If they're doing that without an ATF license, this is a federal crime, right?
100%. It's a federal crime, and they could go to prison, federal prison for it.
Meanwhile, the city of Chicago is suing Georgia-based Glock, saying its weapons are too easily converted to machine guns. Between 2021 and 23, Chicago police recovered more than 1,100 Glock switches. The lawsuit seeks to ban Glock sales until the company manufactures guns that cannot be modified. We reached out to Glock for a comment and have yet to hear back.
Still ahead, handmade with love. How kind-hearted crafters are picking up dropped stitches for families of lost loved ones.
Plus, uncorking your options. The science allowing people to pick their perfect Pinot. Whether it's red or white, dry or sweet, you may be one of 31% of Americans who drink wine. If you've ever looked at a wine list and felt lost, a test could help.
Reporter Elizabeth Vowell shows us how the wine taste test works and how some serious science went into its creation.
Picking the perfect glass of wine can be tricky when the options out there are so vast.
They all end up picking a label that looks cool, that's in their price point, and they hope they don't strike out on it.
That was the idea behind this kit, developed by Henry Barham. Vino Taster is a simple taste test.
So you basically tear off the top of the pouch, and it'll have a strip in there, and you place each one on your tongue just for about 4 to 5 seconds.
The test measures your individual taste receptors for the main components of wine. It then gives you personalized and detailed recommendations based on your taste.
So you are a balance ambassador. Okay.
It's a fun idea meant to help you be a little more wine savvy and maybe make it a bit easier for the wine seller.
I thought it was really cool because since I know a good bit about wine, when I took the Vino Taster, it was pretty accurate as far as like what I personally love to enjoy.
But there is some serious science hiding in this box.
This one's just a fun project where you're taking the test and it's telling you, hey, what wine are you going to like? But yeah, that's the hope in the future, where I kind of mentioned that I do think taste receptors, or T2Rs, and solitary chemosensory cells have such a potential to be a big part of medicine. Another tool that we will often use to evaluate whenever someone comes in and has a problem is a CT scan.
You see, Barham is Dr. Barham.
And you're looking for things like septal deviation, so that's a pretty common problem.
A rhinologist at Baton Rouge General, and he spent his career studying taste and smell. His research got national attention during the height of the pandemic, as we all experienced COVID's odd impacts on the senses.
It's exciting for me that taste and smell is finally getting its moment in the sun. You have vision that we measure people yearly, and you have hearing that we measure people's hearing, but we haven't really done much in taste and smell. And the last 3 years, unfortunately, from COVID has brought on the importance of these neurosensory systems that people just didn't appreciate previously.
As Dr. Barham explains, those taste receptors also play a big role in your immune system, helping your body detect and fight off germs. Research has even shown that loss of smell can be an early warning sign of diseases like Alzheimer's.
Now you realize how important they are, and it's such a great opportunity for us to be able to study them and then do something with it.
And also have fun with it.
You got it.
So while Dr. Barham continues to study taste receptors, you can study what wine goes best with your own.
It's a taste science project, and so for me, who is obsessed with taste and smell science, it's just fascinating.
Here's how the test works. Customers receive 4 test strips. You can place each strip on your tongue, one at a time, rating each strip's taste and intensity. Then enter your results in the app and get your personalized recommendations. Now, we did take the test.
We did.
The strips were...
Yeah.
I'm glad you're being honest about it.
They did not taste great.
Yeah, but the test told me that I'm a Merlot drinker, and I am a Merlot drinker.
How about that? Yeah. Cab Franc for me.
Oh.
I'm more of a Cabernet Sauvignon, but the test says that, so I don't know. We'll see. I think it was pretty accurate after you get past the taste.
Yes. Well, still ahead, hooked on helping, how a seemingly small favor exploded into a worldwide effort to help families heal. Mending broken hearts by tying up loose ends.
That's the mission behind a special group of crafters that started here in the U.S. and has now gone international.
Reporter Heather Graff shows us how they stand ready to help when a grieving family is left with a loved one's unfinished handiwork.
Whether she's making her own yarn using a spinning wheel, or picking out a colorful spool at the store.
That is a fraction of my stash.
Sam Crane loves everything about knitting.
And I found that it was so calming.
And she's made countless one-of-a-kind creations for family and friends. Yet one of her favorite pieces as of late is a soft green scarf that she knit for a stranger.
And I wrote back almost immediately going, yes, I would love to do it.
It all started when she signed up with a nonprofit called Loose Ends. The group is made up of volunteer crafters who step in to complete projects left behind when a loved one passes away or can no longer do handwork due to compromised health.
Jen and I had both finished projects from friends who had lost their moms.
Jen Simonik and Macy Kaplan are avid knitters and friends who co-founded the organization in 2022 because they saw a need.
For a lot of people, when that crafter dies, that's the only crafter they knew.
It's a very real, tangible gift from the person who's passed away. So being able to actually have a third party come in to complete that. It's just so moving.
Today, they say this network of knitters, crocheters, and quilters has gone worldwide. More than 25,000 of them across 64 countries and in every state in the U.S., plus Puerto Rico and Washington, D.C.
And this is my mom.
Which is where Linda Chandler had been holding on to this project that was started but never finished by her late mother, Dorothy.
She always had something that she was working on.
And you lost your mother about 6 years ago?
About 6 years ago, yes.
Her grief never goes away, but when Linda recently learned about loose ends, she says the timing felt right to apply.
It turned out they matched with someone who lives within a couple miles of my home.
And that someone was Sam Crane.
You know, I wanted it to be beautiful and to fully honor her mother's work.
Photos show Sam's progress over the course of a few weeks, and then came the big reveal to Linda.
It brings a lot of joy.
Sam even made a special stitch to mark the spot where Dorothy's hands left off.
The warmth around my neck is sort of brings back the hugs with my mom.
And since Linda is also a mom herself, she decided the scarf would be a perfect gift for her daughter.
She looked at it and she said, I can't believe this. You know, grandmother worked on it. And I said, well, it's for you and for you to help remember her and how talented she was.
Knowing that it had an intended recipient definitely was very meaningful to me.
A thread that will forever bind them together.
Amazing that she cared that much.
And a family's cherished project, now complete.
And that's it for us on Investigate TV Plus. I'm Lee Zurich.
And I'm T. Chappelle. Thanks for watching.
On the next Investigate TV Plus, some states have banned cell phones in school, and others are strongly considering it.
The mission, which is education. Broadly speaking, cell phones are a distraction.
We take an in-depth look at both sides of the debate and the different approaches encouraging kids to hang it up in class.